So hello once again, friends. Thanks a lot for joining us again to another episode of the Do It For Yourself podcast. I'm Steve Taylor. I'm the lead advisor of Merited Wealth, and this is my podcast where we really try to bring people on to talk about topics that we feel may be beneficial and provide value for those of you out there kind of doing it for yourself. So today's conversation is really building, I feel, along other conversations that we've had, and at the core of it is we're talking about marketing, right? And primarily digital marketing. And I've had other guests in the past, if you want to go and look at, prior episodes, about talking about marketing and creating yourself as an expert and putting it out there and how do you do that and to go out there and do that. And this conversation, our host, our great host, she'll introduce herself here in a moment. But we talk a little bit about a lot of those conversations going towards, okay, digital marketing, but create a marketing funnel, for your business. And I'd like to talk about kind of those two ideas together. But without further ado, Amber, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning, Steve. Thanks so much for having me. What a treat to be on your podcast today. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Hey, tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a third generation entrepreneur, born and bred in Texas, a Southern girl through and through. And I grew up in the school of hard knocks of marketing. When my parents started our family businesses in 1983, they had three kids to feed, no customers, no employees, no nothing. And fast forward to today, 25 years later, I was very blessed to have a hybrid education filled with entrepreneurship, working alongside my family as I was going through my own schooling. And now they have over 200 employees and 4 offices across the state of Texas. I've since grown up and gone out on my own. So my marketing company is called Far Beyond Marketing. We do much more than marketing. We empower entrepreneurs with systems, processes, and teamwork so that they are not alone and they can stop wasting money and time on marketing that just doesn't work.
I love it. I love it, Amber. So we've had a lot of conversations before about some of the fundamentals of marketing out there. And so I want to move a little bit, kind of beyond that. And I love that you're the entrepreneur, you're doing it for yourself out there. So a little bit of my journey and a little bit of other people I think that are out there that are listening that are professional entrepreneurs, we'll call them, right? I've always had discussions with people. I was a lawyer by training. Now I'm a financial advisor, and people have said, "Well, you're not an entrepreneur," and I'm like, "I'm not," but we are. It's a different type of entrepreneurship, right? It's different than creating widgets and whatever they might be. So, but in our area, really the product to start even and as it grows many times becomes me, right? Becomes the person, becomes the advice, that they're giving. So for someone out there, let's say, they already have they've worked on a little bit of marketing, right? They're doing a little, they're started their foray into digital marketing where you have kind of this owner personality versus the business. How do you separate those two? What do you tell them to help them become more than just a name? I mean, my office calls people at times and I say, "Hey, it's Merited Wealth." And they say, "Oh, Steve's office," right? And so how do you help them separate and maybe how do you market the two when your business primarily has started because of you and it's maybe advice based and to really try to turn that over into a business?
Yes, it is a crucial turning point in the life cycle of a business, Steve, because you do start out with what I call guerrilla marketing. It's boots on the ground when you're starting your business. And so therefore, when you're networking on a localized area, people are knowing you, your name, your character. Like attracts like. So people are doing business with people that they know, like, and trust. So initially, your brand is your face and is your name. But as your company grows, you want to be able to have options to diversify your time and not be ruled by your business so that you can work on your business instead of in your business. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
As an entrepreneur, you want to be able to bring on team members. You want to be able to network, perhaps do things like a podcast. And if you are solely focused on working in your business, then you become a slave to it. So I would say that it is absolutely crucial for the entrepreneur to understand his or her goals. Do I want a solopreneur business where it is absolutely tied to me, or am I focused on scaling? And if the answer is yes, and we're focused on scaling, then some of the steps to take are to really recognize the core strengths and culture that you have founded your business on and develop a localized brand based upon that. You never want your branding to be in opposition to who you are as a person, because again, people are doing business with you for a reason. But
Yeah.
you do want that brand to stand apart. So for me, my name is Amber Gage. I'm a third generation entrepreneur. My business is far beyond marketing. Why? Because I believe that marketing is more than marketing. I believe that my goal in life is to provide my clients with far beyond what they need for their business. So what is that catchphrase? What is that passion? What is that goal that you're really trying to accomplish with your business? And then step back and build a brand that you love.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I have a lot of those conversations where they say, and we've worked with in our company to talk about like a mission statement, right? What's your promise? What's your value to the client? But I think a lot of people, it's really hard when you really actually sit down and try to create that and try to create that message. It's
Yes.
very hard to come up with it, right? And to look at yourself as something separate than who you are. Because as you say, so much of it has been guerrilla marketing. So
Yeah.
maybe as examples for you or clients that you've worked on, for somebody that's trying to, like we said, this latter person, they're trying to scale, get beyond them, and they're trying to build this brand and they want to build it around who they are. How do they go about doing that, right? What are
Yeah.
some exercises or the skills? Because I've tried it, we're still working on it. It's not easy.
No, it's not. I would say the first question to ask yourself is, what problem do you solve for your clients? There are always three kinds of problems that we solve as a business. One is the external problem. This would be what people are actually getting out of your company. You mentioned law earlier. So, do you do contracts, mergers, acquisitions? What is the external product or service that you offer? Write that down. The second one is, what is the emotional or internal problem that you solve for your clients? The internal component would be, I alleviate stress through seamless transactions. That's an example. So, what's the internal problem? What do you strive to provide or alleviate for your end client? And then the third one be, by what philosophy are you driving your business? Ask yourself the question as an entrepreneur, why is it just plain wrong that my target audience is engaged in this problem? Why is it just plain wrong? Because I can solve this problem for them. And I think by going through that exercise of the internal, external, and philosophical problem, we're able to really tap into the core motivations for our business and then start really forming those mission statements. And hey, by the way, let's not be opposed to Chat GPT. There's a free version for a reason.
Right.
Brainstorm the heck out of it, y'all.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I love that about the core problem, right? And how do you solve that? Because I think so many people, and when they try to go out there and start to articulate what they do and how they solve it, they'll get very wordy, right? And they'll kind of go back, and it seems really like they see them unsure of themselves or whatever, that because they're not really sure how to articulate that. So how do you help them to simplify and articulate that? And then once it's articulated, I'm wondering, like when you're putting it out there digitally, right? How
Yeah.
how do you stay consistent with that and get that messaging out there? Because it can kind of get messy quick.
Oh, it does. And you cannot afford to confuse. If you confuse, you lose. If you hyperphonate, people are going to tune you out, right? We've got 4 seconds or less to make a good impression online, and people judge you in 2.5 seconds or less when you're making a first impression.
Hmm.
So here's the methodology that I teach my clients for a clear elevator pitch. I'm a story brand guide. I am a student of Donald Miller, a story brand. If you haven't read Story Brand book or Story Branding Your Business, it's a fantastic book. There are only about 600 of us in the world that coach story brand. So clarifying your message is a huge component of what I do for my clients. I like to call it a one-liner. It's actually 3 lines, Steve. It's a
Okay.
movie term, doesn't make sense. But the one-liner goes something like this. I solve this problem for my clients so that they can have this outcome through this process. Three
Hmm.
sentences. By forming those 3 sentences, you have now created what we call a one-liner, or what the old school crowd used to call your elevator pitch. No
Right.
more than that. Then how do you parlay that to the digital realm? That becomes the headline of your website. That becomes the sentence at the end of your signature line on your emails. That then becomes topics of your email drips, and you start to really live and breathe into those components consistently with that one-liner. Who are you? Why are you in business? And how do you solve that problem? No more or less.
Interesting, Amber. And let me go into a little bit of personal because I'm starting to think about how we re-look at our website
Yeah.
because we are getting some traffic through it. And I've kind of gone through it. I put our process front and center, right? Because I think that's the way that we try to show our value and articulate to clients. But I think I'm jumping the gun there. I'm getting to the third part of the one liner rather than I should be the first part. So let's start there to a certain extent. Like, so if your website, right, or your social media, do you address all those three questions, all those three aspects of your one liner there immediately, or when they drop upon your website, right, or any kind of other digital marketing, what should be the single most important, message you're trying to get across to then get them to start asking more questions and inquiring more?
Absolutely. So people don't care until they know that you care, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of like developing a relationship with a perfect stranger or 4 seconds or less. Your website is your digital calling card. They
Mhm.
don't care about your process until they understand what's in it for me. Everyone wears an invisible sign on their forehead that says, makes me feel special. So
Mhm.
for our website, we want people to understand very clearly what they get out of the relationship first and foremost. I love a good website audit. We could share screens and pull up websites all day long, and we could talk about the process of story branding a website. But
Right.
first and foremost, on the headline of your website, above the fold, it should be, we do this for our clients.
Okay.
Bam. When they understand what they get when working with you, then they're engaging and they will scroll down to one or two lines down farther and they will say, oh, and here's how they do it. So you start with, bam, this is what I do.
Mhm.
Here's how I help you. And then here's how I do it. Nobody cares about how we do what we do until they know that it's going to actually benefit them. So we always put ourselves in the background and we make the client the hero of their story. We are the guide. The client is the hero.
Interesting. So that terminology, I love that, and I've heard that. I try to create a what are those one line? Well,
Mhm.
an actual one line, right? Where I said, where we try to, get them, but I'm trying to get them to the end. They say, we make your financial life simple, right? And it seemed like it was too bland, right? In the sense that they didn't really understand. When you're saying to make it bam, to make it about them, right? How does that terminology go? Because like I said before, when you're sorting this out, you struggle, right? So how
Yeah.
are we talking about them? I mean, do you start it with a you or something? I mean, just some examples of that phrasing, because quite honestly, that's something that I've struggled with. I understand I want to make it about them. I understand how they're feeling, but the terminology I've always struggled with.
Yeah. Well, and this is going to vary greatly based upon the industry and the solutions that you provide. I'm not going to tell you that there is a perfect system
Mhm.
for making sure that this is exactly right. But let's go back to the example that you gave. What was it that you said? We make
Well,
financial.
now that I remember, I don't use it, but I
Yeah.
was working on your financial life made simple,
Okay. It begs the question of how,
right?
right?
Hmm.
So your financial life simplified through white glove service,
Got it.
or peace of mind for your finances shouldn't be hard. We take the guesswork out of it.
Right.
So again, it isn't enough to just say, this is the outcome. You want people to understand through what. So for me, on my website, it is making marketing ridiculously easy for entrepreneurs through
That's
systems
clear.
and processes. How do I do it? I take the guesswork out of it. I have a 4-part marketing plan that I walk all my clients through. All my clients know that my international best-selling book is The Four C's of Effective Marketing. I'm going to take them through a proven process of 25 years of experience that's going to get them an outcome, which means they're no longer wondering if their marketing's working and they're no longer wasting money on ineffective marketing. So the website has to call out what you do, but it also has to call out what they get out of it. So again, that 3-part plan or that 3-liner, You can put it in different orders, but it's got to be short. It's got to be simple. And you always want it above the fold. Don't make them scroll for it. They got to see
Got
it
it.
right off.
Got it. So when you're out there, and that's wonderful. I love, you make that clear about what you do and really to get them engaged right off the start. And so to kind of go back to what I was talking about before, right? When you're trying to talk to them about your business and you're trying to get more so than just your business, as they
Yes.
come in and you draw them, because when I look at the analytics of my website, I see, where do they go? Right? Where they get to the homepage and where do they go? A lot of it is like our team, and they or contact us sometimes, And so where are you trying to drive them in your messaging on the website, right? That once, okay, you kind of got them hooked, whether it's your website or other kind of digital media, where then do you want them to go? Do you want to talk about more about your process, how you do it? Do you want to talk about your people? Do you not want to talk about your people to the end, right? Because you said, right, we're making this about them. So it's kind of that fine line. I always wonder, okay, we're talking about them, we're getting them in, but then I think, well, don't they kind of want to know about us also? So how do you balance those?
Donald Miller says that you should have two calls to action on your website side by side. You should have a primary call to action that basically gives an easy way for them to reach out to you, right?
Hmm.
And that should not be a generic call to action. I hate contact us.
Right.
Please don't. Call me, book a session. Let's get really, really clear, right?
Uh-huh.
Contact us is like walking up to a girl in the bar and saying, let's get started. Excuse me? With what? You buying a drink or what's going on here, right? So your
Right.
call to action primarily should be book a call or let's chat. Let's make it really, really clear. But
Okay.
here's the real kicker, Steve. The secondary call to action is where you want to drive them because in some form or fashion, indirectly or directly, you have paid and sacrificed and worked to get someone to come to your website, right? We know
Hmm.
this. So you need a way to get their contact information because that's gold. So the secondary call to action should always be something that you're giving them as a reward for checking you out. Maybe it's a quiz that helps them identify what services they need. Quizzes are great.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a downloadable PDF. Maybe it's a 3-part checklist. Give them something that immediately benefits them as it's related to your products or services, but you want to require a little bit of something. You want to require their email address because an email address is probably worth about $10. And so if you're giving me something, now as the business owner, I know who's coming to my website and I'm building a pipeline. And then I can start to communicate with them respectfully. Nobody likes a stalker, but you might as well get the contact information for the people that you're soliciting.
Yeah, that's great. I'll give you a quick story. I'm trying to learn guitar and I'm doing it on my own. And I'm going through YouTube and I came across this one site, this one guy. I've been seeing his videos. I've liked it and I've gone in and I'm very hesitant to do it, right? But I gave my email and he dripped on me. And by
Okay.
the, and by the fourth email, I'm like, I'm signing up. And so I'm signing up Sunday and I'm starting to go through it, right? Because it works.
There you go.
Because
It
it
works.
works, right? And I get that to go in there. So, but that was where it got me to him and his site. It was him, right? I mean, he brands himself, with a name and his name, he gives his name when he goes in there. So, but that what got me there. So going back to where we're talking about, right, the business versus the individual, how can your individual marketing really support the business and not be too much just about you, right? And not defeat the purpose of what you're trying to do, right? Because I always think about, when I was a lawyer before, right? And I went out there, lawyers, their name is their brand. Although I see some law firms going away from that, right? Your
For
your
sure.
your your expertise and the like. But I want to be, and I want to continue to build my expert brand, but I want it to parlay over into my business, right? I don't want them calling the office necessarily asking for me. I want them, asking for the business. So how does any of your personal branding, let's say, trying to brand your expertise, how does that parlay and as part of the process to bring people over to your business brand, which you're trying to grow?
Well, you have to become the subject matter expert and you have to be able to develop your unique voice. Everyone is going to have their own methodology and process for how they do business, right?
Hmm.
And there's a million ways to make money, especially in the United States. You make money picking up dog poop in the backyard. And that, by the way, that's a national franchise. Like that's a thing, right?
I saw it.
But maybe the different ways that people brand it, whether it's a subscription, whether it's a one-time service, whether it's a military theme, whether it's a purple theme, purple people eater, the way that we do business varies greatly based upon who we are as subject matter experts. So as you are identifying your unique voice, you then become the subject matter expert, but the methodology and the vehicle for obtaining your expertise is your business. So whether it's through podcasting, whether it's through networking, whether it's through white labels, or excuse me, white papers, find an outlet that your voice can do, which then feeds people into the pipeline of working with your company. So you have two personas, really. You have the business owner, who is the subject matter expert, but then you have the method of delivery, which is the business itself.
That's great. That's great. And let me parlay that onto Amber because you mentioned it before, and it's something I'm really looking into. I heard a podcast about it. It's really interesting, right? About writing a book, right? And someone came out. You mentioned your book, right? Going through that process and all the like, because I've thought about it in the past, and he came out and he said, okay, well, here's the way we do it, and his promise was, hey, we'll write your book in 6 weeks, right? And I'm like, huh. I was a little
Oh,
skeptic. I was a little
wow.
skeptical of that, right? It seems like
Can I get his
that.
number?
Right. So can you talk a little bit about that, building upon that because you have your book and you can talk about a little bit, and we'll put links to your site so people can get it about the way you went about in writing it. Like how does that influence, like you just said right now, right? How did that promise and inform how you actually do your business and how do you utilize it? And I wonder, like once you write a book, is it kind of evergreen? Do you continue to update it? But that's something that really interests me now for those who are out there who are thinking about maybe, writing a book, talk about how you did yours and how you use it.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about my personal process. I am certainly not a publisher or an expert by any means, but I found that for me, I was repeating myself again and again. My clients were coming to me for similar reasons with similar needs. And I think that's a pretty common occurrence for entrepreneurs. We get the same instance, and that's part of systemizing our business so that we can serve a higher volume of people with greater efficiency. So I decided to write a book because I was approaching the problems for my clients the same way, and I wanted to document it. I also needed a pipeline so that I could have residual income for my business. In book sales, you're not going to get rich. I mean, maybe some of you will. Congratulations. Tell me how you did it. But book sales tend to be an opportunity to establish your authority and validation of that unique voice that we mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
And so your book then becomes an opportunity to open doors of trust to say, listen, this has worked for my clients, and this is how I approach providing solutions for people. And then, as I mentioned a second ago, your book can also then become a platform that you use for keynote speaking, public appearances, empowerment of your team. A book opens doors. And not everyone is an author. I'm going to hear people probably saying right now, well, I'm not an author. I don't want to write a book. What about an ebook? What about a white paper? What about a digital book that you're just narrating? I mean, YouTube is the number one search platform. By the way, fun fact, they overtook Google for a whole month. So you don't necessarily have to have a written book. With technology and AI being what it is, have a digital persona and get on and talk about your stuff. Do a Facebook Live, do a YouTube, do whatever you authentically can show up for, but use it as a systematic tool, as a pipeline for your business. That's what I do.
That's awesome. I think that's great. And I love what you're mentioning there because that's what I'm thinking about doing it through YouTube, right? And then that could be transcribed potentially into text, but it's much easier to get up here and just start talking about it and talking about yourself and getting used to it, and that can be transcribed into a book. Rather than the old days, I used to write so much as an attorney, right? Sitting down and cranking out all these documents. I just got tired of it. So building on that, and going back to the story, the story selling and the mention, as you mentioned. So when you're writing your book, right, I find a lot of interesting conversations and content is individuals telling their story, right, their background, and they're going through it. So how do you include, or do you recommend to include your personal journey within that book, or do you go right to the content and the meat of it, right? I'm just wondering, as I see some people, maybe they do more than one book, I guess, right? It becomes all about this content. But how important in writing the book, or maybe in other means, I'll allow you to elaborate there of basically marketing in general, how important is it to get your personal journey and story out there?
Well, that's a very personal question because some people are more private than others. I'm a pretty open book myself. I'm a Southern girl, so we wear our hearts on our sleeves. But there are people who prefer to keep their personal story quite private, and that's everyone's right.
Mhm.
So I would say that going back to the ideology that people do business with who they know, like, and trust, you should be approachable. You should always be authentic. But the level of transparency in which you share your personal background is absolutely up to you. And that's going to vary based on your industry as well. I'm a plumber's kid. I grew up on the back of a backhoe playing in the dirt at my dad's construction sites. And that molded and formed a lot of my ideologies regarding how marketing should be done for small businesses. When I built my agency, I didn't want to build a standard agency. I wanted to build a white glove service-based agency for people who needed help now. That's my personal story.
Mhm.
I choose to do business that way. That doesn't mean that there isn't someone like me out there that said, "Hey, I have a very humble background too, but I wanted to have a more corporate agency with a higher volume and streamline." That's your right. But I will just say that you're going to attract people who relate to your story. So make sure that you're authentic and only share to the level of your personal comfort.
Okay, that's great. I really like that. That's really wonderful advice there. Yeah, you don't want to get out there and do anything that you're going to feel, you share too much or uncomfortable about. I will say though, doing this podcast and getting out there and doing your marketing is I will encourage people to put yourself out there in one way or another. And the more you do it, the more comfortable it gets.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like anything else out there. So any people who are listening to this and thinking about, wanting to do some different type of marketing, wanting to change their messaging, just go do it. Try stuff, right? Trial and error, and to see what might work. So Amber, as we close up here, I'd like to give an opportunity, maybe you talk a little bit about your firm, but also maybe going into 2025 and within your agency, within your core and stable of clients, what are some of the things, some of the strategies that you're kind of working on and you're thinking about and you're excited about for 2025 to really start rolling out there for your clients?
Steve, I appreciate you asking that question because we are really excited about 2025. 2024 was a really tough year for a lot of reasons. And I believe that 2025, we're going to see a resurgence of small business growth and lead generation. I think people are ready. People are ready. So, 5 years post-COVID, let's go. Let's hit the ground running. That's the sense that I have as I travel around the country and meet with people. I
Mhm.
am all about empowerment for entrepreneurs. So while my book is great, I also understand that not everybody will apply the principles that are put into a book. So again, how do you follow the rule of KISS? Keep it simple.
Mhm.
I created an e-course that goes along with my book. So I'm really excited to provide the e-course to busy entrepreneurs so that they can take the concepts of marketing, the 4 C's of effective marketing, dig in a little bit deeper and learn how to actually apply them to their businesses. So my e-course is live. It's the 4 C's of effective marketing. And I would love to empower entrepreneurs to take control of their marketing and grow their businesses.
That's wonderful. And I'll say, going back to my guitar story, right? That's kind of a choice I'm starting to make now to really, get my content and my education. So I may be there. I may be one of those signing up for that. That sounds really great. So Amber, listen, I really appreciate you joining us. And, we'll put all your information out there for anybody else that wants to reach out to you. But thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was a joy.